We invite you to worship with Tabernacle Baptist Church. 5 services, multiple locations. Tabernacle, Maine, 1223 Laney Walker Boulevard, Augusta, Georgia, 7:15 a.m., 9:45 a.m., and 12:15 p.m. And Tabernacle West, 702 North Bel Air Road, Evans, Georgia, 9 a.m. and 11:15 a.m. The virus of fear, worry, discouragement, loneliness, and despair has overtaken our lives. We're in a spiritual health crisis. In times like these, it's easy to give up. It's easy to allow the troubles of today to disrupt the hope of tomorrow. We're trying to figure out, will life ever be the same? We're faced with the reality that we have been infected. The question for us is this: when we're fighting for our lives, what do we need? We need help. We need healing. We need a cure. Isn't that what we're looking for?
Where it's all about God's people. TBC, making an impact. Where it's all about God's people. TBC, making an impact. Welcome to the Kingdom Living Broadcast with the Reverend Dr. Charles E. Goodman. Making an impact.
Well, welcome. I'm glad you showed up today. I've got some news to tell you. The news I need to tell you is you've tested positive. No, not what you're thinking. Not coronavirus, not COVID-19. That in itself is gripping our world. And we're praying that there will come a solution, some kind of treatment for it. The numbers for coronavirus are absolutely devastating. Anything that causes us to lose life is tough. But what you tested for today that I brought you here to discuss is not coronavirus. No, it's another virus. Matter of fact, over the next couple of weeks, I've run a couple tests, and I've seen that you've been infected by some things that can potentially destroy, can potentially be harmful. I'm looking at the results now, and I'm trying to figure out a way to let you know what this first test shows that you have. I'm a storyteller by nature, so pardon me if I can kind of explain it, because I want to make sure that I'm able to articulate in a way that's going to at least give you some ease with what you've tested positive for. When I think about how to really explain it to you, I would say it this way. I'm a history buff, and some while ago there was a man by the name of Black Bart. You may never even heard of him, but he's one of what we consider the most famous stagecoach robbers of all time. He robbed over 29 different stagecoaches between 1875 and 1883. Stagecoaches that he robbed went from New York all the way to San Francisco. But what made it interesting about Black Bart is that he terrorized with no gun. He didn't fire a shot. He never took a hostage. He only had a hood over his face, which means that every victim that he saw never saw his face. It was his mere presence that paralyzed his victims and was able to rob them of everything that they had. His sinister presence was enough to terrorize them. Even the strongest of stagecoach guards succumbed to Black Bart. And what he used was intimidation. And what he used literally was fear. That's what our test today says, that you are infected with the virus called fear. Fear is tough, and that's what I want to share with you. And I want to let you know as we come today, I see the glum look on your face. But let me tell you that there is truth. There is really no immunity from fear. Fear itself is hard. Matter of fact, if we were to give you this, and as a medical doctor, I have to explain it for you. Fear is a chain reaction in the brain that starts with a stressful stimulus and ends with the release of chemicals that cause a racing heart or fast breathing. And it creates in us what is called the fight or flight response. I know you've heard of that. And that's what I want to talk today. Because what happens when you have this virus called fear? What happens when You have to wrestle with this thing attacking you, even if you are going through the precautions to try to guard yourself from it. I know you're wondering today, and that's why I brought you. I want to let you know, because sometimes there's some people who have fear and don't even know that they have it. There's some physical symptoms to fear. There's sweating. There's trembling. Also, my notes tell me there can be hot flashes or chills, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing. Many of us have that even as I'm speaking. Or even a choking sensation. Also, my notes say that some of the symptoms that you have exhibited is rapid heartbeat, tightness of the chest, or yes, I know this is one, feels like butterflies are in your stomach. These are symptoms of fear that manifests itself in a physical way. But also, there are spiritual symptoms of fear. There's worry. Worry itself becomes a spiritual symptom of fear. So does anxiety. And also, I know all of us, especially during this time, can talk about stress. Stress itself is a symptom of fear. But I know you're asking the critical question. Doc, how did I get it? I've been practicing social distance. I've been trying to make sure that I stay sheltered in place. But here's the thing about fear. Fear does not care if you are social distance from someone. It does not even care if you are quarantined at the house. Fear can come anywhere. Matter of fact, this is how we contract. It's simply a threat stimulus. Anything that somehow triggers a response in us. It could be a predator or an animal that you saw. Or in lieu of what we're facing today, uncertainty. Numbers on TV telling us how many people have died from a particular disease. Or it could be the threat of a loss of life, or yes, even the threat of the loss of income. But here's the truth about fear. A lot of times we're intimidated by fear because fear also makes us scared of things that have not even happened yet. Fear has this weird way of causing one to be closeted and us to struggle. Oh, I see on your sheet, it also tells me that you're a believer in God. You follow Jesus. And I can imagine in your mind, you're probably thinking, I follow Jesus, but I'm still fearful. Let me put your mind to rest. You can love Jesus and still wrestle with fear. You can love Jesus and still grapple with terror and trauma. That I need you to understand today. Don't feel like you're odd. I don't want you to feel like you're by yourself. Fear happens to all of us. Pastors, elders, choir members, ushers, anybody can catch fear. Matter of fact, it even happens when you love the Lord. There was a little boy by the name of Johnny. He was about 5 years old, and he was in the kitchen with his mother. She was cooking dinner, and his mother needed him to go get a can of soup out of the pantry. But one of the funny things is that Johnny was fiercely afraid of the dark, and the pantry was dark. He told his mom, I can't go to the pantry. It's dark. Go get it yourself. She kept pleading back and forth with Johnny until finally she said, listen, Johnny, Jesus will be there with you. Johnny goes reluctantly to the pantry. It's dark. He opens it up, peeks inside, sees that it's still dark. His fears get triggered. But then a bright idea comes in. This is what Johnny does. And he epitomizes what me and you do from time to time. He yells in the dark pantry room. This is what he says. Jesus, if you're there, would you hand me the can of tomato soup? In other words, he tried to navigate fear and Jesus in the same space. Let me help you. For those who are scientific in your mind, fear really has two meanings. First of all, it can mean forget everything and run, which is potentially what many of us do, especially when fear grips us. Or the alternative is face everything and rise. Oh, I need somebody to hear that. Either you can forget everything and run, that can be fear for you, or you can face everything and rise. This is it. The choice is yours. Matter of fact, the Bible, which is going to be our manual over the next few weeks, that is able to exemplify to us the medical remedies, how we can manage the viruses that affect us, tells us this: for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but a power and of love and a sound mind. Listen, I got good news for you, because I can already tell how gloomy you feel, saying, how did I catch this fear? How am I going to get rid of this fear? And I know you heard me tell you there's no immunity to fear, but I got good news for you. And the good news is simply this: there's a cure for your fear. I got to let you know, there's a cure. And the cure for fear, I need you to lean in, because that's what I'm prescribing to you today. That's the doses that I'm giving you. The cure for fear, watch this, is faith. That's why you showed up today. In spite of your fear, that's what drove you to this place. Because I have a remedy. I have something that's going to help you get through and get over fear. I hear what you're saying. Is it just that simple, Doc? Yes. The Bible lets us know that faith is a powerful thing. Faith in itself helps us. It gives us what we need when we need it. Matter of fact, faith, according to the Bible, is the only thing that really pleases God. Hebrews 11:1 and 6 says to have faith is to be sure of things we hope for, to be certain of things we cannot see. Watch this: no one can please God without faith. For whoever comes to God must have faith that God exists and rewards those who seek him. In times like these, it's easy to let fear grip our hearts, whether it's the fear of sickness, fear of lack, fear of the unknown, fear of what happens with our loved ones, fear in these moments, fear, should I go to the barber shop or not go? Should I go to the store or not go? But when fear seems to plague our every thought, we can remember this one important truth. This is why faith is the cure, is because God is with us. Even now, God is with us. He's with us, and not only is he with us, but he assures us that he loves us. Now, let me give you a warning about this treatment of faith. Don't think that you can just come in, take one dose of faith, and you'll be fine for the rest of your life. No, what I'm offering to you in the dosage of faith has to be taken continually, because guess what? Fear is always going to come out. Can I be honest with you? Just like they have flu season and other things, they're saying that next wave of this coronavirus can come back even more deadly and lethal. Let me tell you, there is never an off season for fear. Fear happens at every point and place of life. And here's the thing I need to warn you. Just because you have faith doesn't mean it takes the fear away. But what faith does do is allows us to embrace our fears while also experiencing God. Allows us to embrace our weaknesses while also encouraging others. It allows us to embrace our doubts while also embodying courage. So listen, I need to give this to you as any good doctor would. I don't want to just prescribe to you medication and not tell you how it's going to help you. Listen, there are some side effects, but they're good side effects to faith. They're positive side effects that faith does in order to help us combat fear. Let me share them with you before I administer them to you, because I need you to know what you're taking today. I need you to make sure that you know why faith is important in order to cure our fear. Well, this dosage of faith, it first of all readjusts our focus from fear. That when you have faith, it readjusts your focus, and it does not allow you to focus on the fear that you're experiencing. Let me lift up another thing that I see in my notes as part of the manual that tells us why faith helps us overcome fear. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Here in the book of Isaiah, God reminds the people, fear not. I love this because if you look at this phrase in Scripture, there's 365 instances of that one phrase, fear not, which means that God gives us a fear not for every single day. Here it is. God is literally telling the people and telling you and I that when we have fear, we should not struggle. We should not be afraid. Why? Because our focus should be on God. 1 John chapter 4, verse 18 and 19 also talks about this whole notion of how faith is exemplified through something that I want to tell you is also a mixture in what I'm offering today, that is love. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment. Whoever fears has not been perfected in love. We love because he first loved us. Yeah, what I'm giving you today, this faith has a mixture of love in it as well. Those two things together helps to make sure our focus is where it needs to be in order to overcome our fear. But what happens when we don't have that love? What happens when fear seems to outweigh or outfocus our faith? Well, not too long ago, matter of fact, within the last year, I happened to be at a zoo. There was an exhibit of the bald eagle. I love the bald eagle, an amazing, majestic creature. What was interesting, when I went to this exhibit, there was no roof on it, or there was no walls. It was amazing to me because I think of an eagle soaring through the air and having its wings spread out until I got closer to the exhibit. There was a sign right there next to the exhibit, and this is what the sign said. The birds in this exhibit have sustained permanent injuries in the wild and cannot fly. In other words, because of the injuries of his past, this bird was unable to fly into his future. And that's sometimes what fear can do. That's why many of us are struggling. Even right now, we are sick with fear because of something that has managed to somehow inhibit us and cripple us in our past. Fear in our past can sometimes stop our progress in our future. That's why you got to jump on this now. That's why the only way you can get past fear is you got to have faith. Psalm 34:4 says, I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all of my fears. One of my favorite songs, Psalm 27:1-3, also gives us a good way that the psalmist declares how one should focus in times when they are tremor and terrified. This is what David says, the Lord is my light and my salvation, in whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? When evildoers sell me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and foes, it is they who stumble and fall. Though an army encamps against me, my heart shall not fear. The war, sickness, or plague rises against me, yet will I be confident. In other words, what the psalmist is saying is that your focus determines how you get through your fear. John Wesley, one day, this great thinker, one of the founders of the Wesleyan or Methodist movement, was walking with a troubled man who expressed his doubt to the goodness of God. He said, I don't know what I shall do with all this worry and trouble. And while they're walking along, John Wesley sees a cow looking over a stone wall. Do you know, asked Wesley, why that cow is looking over that wall? The man said, no, I don't know why. Wesley said, the cow is looking over the wall because he cannot see through the wall. That is what you must do with your wall of fear. Look over it and avoid it. That's what faith does. That's why this dosage of faith is going to be beneficial in us to get through fear, because faith enables us to look past our circumstances and focus on Christ. I guarantee you, money back guarantee you, that faith overcomes fear by readjusting our focus. But I also want you to know that faith overcomes fear because it reorders our priorities in fear. Let's be honest. Most of the fear that we wrestle with and struggle with that has infected our life is because our life is out of priority. It's out of order. Because you're trying to figure out how you can make it through and fail to understand that the in order of life is not us and God, it's God and us. That's why too many of us become slaves to our circumstances. Romans 8:15 says, for you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. In other words, what I'm simply suggesting for us today and why we got infected by fear and how fear got in our lives is because oftentimes we wanted to operate based on what we see and not what we believe. You got to be careful. I hate to tell you that sometimes your eyes are lying to you. That's why he tells us in 2 Corinthians 5:7, for we walk by faith and not by sight. I'll never forget, the year was 1999. I was actually in college when a news headline spread across the newspaper. I know that sounds so old to many of you out there, but back when I was in college, there was no social media. I think the only thing we had was Black Planet back then. But there was a headline that went out, John F. Kennedy Jr. has died. When you got the things that happened in the story, you come to find out that Kennedy with his wife and her sister were headed to a wedding when their plane crashed. Now, Kennedy was a pilot. Matter of fact, he was a licensed pilot, but he was only approved to fly with sight. He had not yet been approved to fly with instrumentation. See, there's a difference. Flying with instrumentation meant that even when your sight was messed up, you could still fly based on the instruments in your cockpit. But for whatever reason, the flight that night was delayed, and guess what happened? He decided to take off after dark. They were flying over a body of water where his vision was smeared, but because he could not follow the instrumentation panel, his vision was so messed up it caused him to crash. 3 lives were lost because he was operating by sight. Sight is difficult. That's why for many of us, this has been a hard challenge. For me personally, I will admit to you, that's why I'm wrestling and feeling the weight of what we're going through, because my human reason is trying to find an answer for this. My human reason is trying to figure out, why are we stuck in this situation? My human reason is trying to navigate and come up with an answer. But here is the truth. We can't make it through with human reason. It'll fail us every time. But where human reason fails, God never fails. That's why the Bible said, trust in the Lord in all thy ways, he will direct us. His word keeps you and I on the right course as long as we obey. That's why 1 John 4:18 reminds us there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, for fear has to do with punishment. And whoever fears has not been perfected in love. That's why this injection of faith that I'm giving you today is important, because it gives us this unconditional tie to know that even though we may not understand it, God will still make a way somehow. That even though our minds are trying to figure it out, what faith plus love does, it works it out. Reminds me of the little girl who was unaccustomed to traveling. She was taking a train ride through the country, but she was definitely afraid and had all these questions about how this train would get over bodies of water and make it through dark tunnels. She saw the body of water out her window and she gripped her seat tightly, not sure how they were going to make it through. She did not know how this train was going to make it over until they got right to the body of water, and to her surprise, the train kept trucking. Guess what? There was a bridge for the train to go over. Matter of fact, they came to another body of water not long after that, and guess what? The same thing happened. A bridge was right over the troubled water, and in essence, she laid back, gave a sigh of relief, and this is what she said: somebody has put bridges for us all of the way. You and I are just like this little girl, that we can oftentimes create scenarios of our doom. We can create scenarios of our demise. We can assume that we'll go crashing into the rivers of pain, and to the rivers of hurt, into the rivers of torment, but I've got good news. Just like this little girl, find out God will put bridges all the way through. That stuff you can't figure out, God will work out. That's what faith does. It lets us know that God has already set something ahead of us to get us safely through. Not only will this shot of faith readjust us and reorder us, but I'm also here to tell you that it replenishes our hope against fear. Yeah, here's the truth. You're going to get tired. Fear is going to weigh on you. That's why I told you, you just can't take one dose of faith and think that's all you need. No, you're going to have to keep taking faith. Every day, you're going to have to take a regimen of faith. When you wake up, take some faith. As you go throughout your day, take some faith. Yes, right here in my notes. Even as you go to take at night, take 2 doses of faith. You're going to need to make sure that you consistently keep faith in your system. The only way you can fight off fear is to have a consistent regimen of faith. Because the more faith you put in you, the more hope you have. Hope is important. Matter of fact, that's what we learn in Deuteronomy 31:8. The Lord, he that go before thee, he will be with thee. He will not fail thee, neither forsake thee. Fear not, nor be dismayed. Here's why I want to be honest with you. I can already tell, and you're not by yourself. I need you to know that. When you're fearing a situation or emotional challenge, you've got to really envision God saying this. You got to hear God in your spirit say to you, I'm still on your side. No matter what happens, that promise lasts forever. That promise of God is going to outlast this quarantine. This promise from God is going to outlast us being sheltered in place. This promise for God is an unconditional, eternal promise God gives us. It even outlasts disappointments when friends or family members or coworkers may disappoint us. Here's the good news: God will never turn on us. Matter of fact, I can even tell you, I'm not just a doctor, but I've also been in the position of the patient. I've had some of my most lowest and painful moments of life have also been the same time I've been the closest to God. I'll never forget moments of not knowing what to do and being in a fetal position, only to have God breathe his promises back on me to remind me that this was not the moment to give up, to lose my faith, because what we have in our faith is what gets us through. Matter of fact, the mere fact you are here in this examination room means that you got a little bit of faith. You decided to show up even though things were crazy. You still came even though you were infected with fear. And that's the power of faith. Just a little bit can turn your situation around. Just a little bit of faith can make all the difference. Romans 8:31 says, "What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us?" There's a word that has always given me comfort. It's the 23rd division of Psalm. You know that psalm. It's the shepherd's psalm. But there's a portion of it that I appreciate, that I feel addresses fear. Verse 4 of Psalm 23 tells us, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." That's powerful. Because if you notice in Psalm 23, the opening starts with God guiding the sheep. Around verse 5 and 6, it slows down with the shepherd behind the sheep. But verse 4 is when the shepherd walks beside the sheep. He walks beside the sheep, and notice when they're in the shadow of death. Think about that. That when we walk through the valley, and this is the reality, we're going to have valleys to walk through. That's what we're going through now, just valley. But he says, you can't avoid valleys, but know you're not by yourself in the valley. Even though I walk through the valley. I love those little terms in that Bible. Even though you are afraid, even though we walk through COVID, even though we lost a job, even though our loved one is sick, even though, here's the thing, you're not walking through it by yourself. Matter of fact, the real shout of that text for me and why I wanted to give you this encouragement and this cure today is that notice what he says, "Yea, though I walk through." There's a difference between walking through and walking to. The through means you're not going to be in this forever.
Thank you for joining us. If you were blessed by today's message, there are several ways to view it again for free and play it back anytime and anywhere. Visit our YouTube channel, TBC Augusta GA, and our website, tbcaugusta.org. You can also download the Tab Impact app from the Apple Store or Google Play. As always, thank you for worshiping with us at the most impactful place on the planet, the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church.